This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we are continuing with our Shabbat plans. I think we're at page 36. Just 1 second. There we go. Okay, 36, keeping food warm. Okay, we'll get into all the details of the food on Shabbos. They'll have a whole separate section to itself. In general, as we've mentioned, there are two overriding concerns and issues when it comes to the food on Shabbos. Number one, we can't cook. Number two, we can't do things that appear like cooking. Cooking is a Torah prohibition, and things that appear like cooking, as you could well imagine, is a rabbinic prohibition, a rabbinic issue. Cooking would be bringing something to at least a solid to at least 1/3 of the way cooked, and bringing a liquid to a point of yad soledet bo. Yad soledet bo, we'll come to all this in more detail, is that your hand will jerk back from contact with that it's about 105 to 110 degrees. Okay? But, okay, so foods which one wishes to serve warm on Shabbos should be placed on a source of heat after they are cooked. And this we discussed already. That's the hot plate or the metal sheet covering the stovetop that we discussed last week. That is the blech. Hot water should be boiled in advance. It should then be kept hot in a Shabbos kettle or in place on the Shabbos hot plate or the metal sheet. Okay, we'll come to all those details. Just something that does come up very often to keep in mind is a cooking on Shabbos that people do very often without realizing it is, at least in a private home. In an apartment, it might be a little bit different. In a private home, when you take hot water out of the faucet, just turn on the hot water faucet for a moment. So what's actually happening? So hot water is coming from your boiler through the pipes out of your faucet, but it's got to stay full. The boiler has to stay full. So as soon as hot water comes out, what goes in? Cold water goes in, and then it gets cooked up in that boiler, ready for further taking of hot water. Okay? So therefore, when one is in a private home, one would not be allowed to use the hot water on Shabbos at all. Because when you do, you're cooking the cold water that's going into the boiler. If you are in apartments, so like you guys are over here in Park West, right? So there you'd really want to try to figure out.
We have our own water heater.
You have your own water heater?
Yeah, we have our own water heater.
Oh,
Yeah.
then you've got the same problem as everyone else.
Yeah.
If you're in a big apartment building,
It's all shared.
and it's all shared, so there's always cold water. If you have 100 apartments, 200 apartments, all pulling from this massive boiler, so there's always cold water going in. It's not that you turned on the hot water faucet, and now cold water went. It's constantly going in because it's constantly going out. But in situations where there's just 2 or 4, or certainly if you have your own, or 2 or 4, I'd say even 8 apartments, there would be an issue. Okay, 37, preparing tea essence. Okay. All right, we'll get more into details of this, but we don't do this so much anymore. Okay? The issue over here is you can't cook up the tea. Now, most things only get cooked if they are in what's called a kli rishon. A kli rishon is the primary pot that's on the stovetop, on the fire. Okay? When you then take from that into another vessel, that's called kli vessel sheni, the second one. And of course, that's going to cool things off considerably because the walls of that second kli, that second vessel, are cold. Put hot things in there, it's going to meet its equilibrium temperature, which will have cooled it off significantly. Normally things don't cook. Halachically, they don't cook in a kli sheni. But certain things which are easily cooked items do cook in a kli sheni, and that certainly is tea leaves. Okay? So therefore, what used to be done very often was that people would cook up before Shabbos, a very, very thick tea concentrate, right? Put 20 tea bags in there, make it super crazy, right? And keep that warm over the whole Shabbos. And then add that to hot water. Since it's warm, it's already cooked and it's warm, you're not re-cooking it. Right? Now in the little diagram here, you see the guy's taking some tea bags out of the closet. And if you can read there, it says in there, Lo le Shabbat on the middle shelf there. Not for Shabbat. Don't use those tea bags on Shabbos. Okay, the way that most people do it nowadays is they'll do it in a kli shlishi. A kli shlishi is a third vessel. So you'll see next to now of course, if you have a cold water, what are those called? A cooler, a water cooler in your house, right? Which also has a hot water spigot. That's a serious problem on Shabbos, right? Why is that like we have over here in the shul? Why is that a serious problem? Because as soon as you take hot water out, what happens? Cold water goes and fills up that little area which is cooking that hot water. So taking out hot water is cooking water. But let's say I've got a hot water urn, right, where I heat the water before Shabbos. And therefore taking out any hot water, there's no cold water that's going in. There's no cold water that's getting cooked as a result of my taking hot water out. So that would be the Kli Rishon. That is the primary heating unit. If I then pour the hot water into a hot cup, that's my Kli Sheni. If I then pour that hot cup into a second hot cup, that's now will be my Kli Shlishi, my third vessel. And things don't cook in a Kli Shlishi. And therefore you can put your tea bag into a Kli Shlishi. That's what you'll very often see. If we're using the hot water urn over here, usually it's not plugged in over Shabbos, but if you are, you'll see there's an empty hot cup over there, right? And people use that as their Kli Sheni, their second vessel, and then pour that into a third cup, and then you can have your tea with reckless abandon and enjoy your tea on Shabbos. So what it says here on the shelf in the book, Lo l'Shabbat, right? So if it's done in a Kli Shlishi, then it can be done for Shabbat. Now, page 38. When it comes to Shabbos, the main issues that we have on Shabbos are cooking and separating, choosing, borer. Okay? And that we'll touch upon over here, but again, we'll have its own section later on, which is borer, selecting. Washing fruits and vegetables which are mixed with dirt and other unwanted matters should be washed before Shabbos. One should not wash them on Shabbos, as is likely one will transgress the prohibition of selecting. Okay, this is not referring to taking your clean produce, but since they might have been sprayed with insecticides or who knows what, or since it was sitting there in the grocery market, you're not sure who else might have touched that tomato and decided not to take that one. So what do we do with our fruits and vegetables normally? We wash them first. That will not be a problem on Shabbos. That will not be borer. That will not be choosing, selecting. If it's mixed with dirt and stones and pebbles, so that is an issue of selecting. But if I'm simply rinsing it off, if I take grapes, and normally the grapes come in a bag that already has holes and perforations in it, so it's very easy for you to rinse that off through that bag. That is not a problem at all on Shabbos. I'm not being borer in any way. It's not that I'm keeping the grapes and losing, right? That's not borer. That's simply rinsing off, and that is perfectly allowed. 39 separate.
Rabbi, question also with grapes.
Yes.
You say we have to rinse them off, we have to keep them in a bag?
No. Thank you if I wasn't clear. What I'm saying is very often the grapes that you buy will come in a bag that has holes in it. You can use to rinse off. Okay, that's not like using a sifter or something. You're just rinsing it off, it's going in and out, and that's not a problem, right? Of course, you could also take it in your hands and rinse it off, and that's fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay? Very good. Okay. 39 is separating Trumot and Masrot. Yes.
Rabbi, so for a kazayis is like an olive or
Yeah. Slightly bigger than our present day olives.
like,
Yeah.
you know how there's terminology for measurement? So
Yeah.
with the borer, is there all
Okay.
is there like a term for like the
So Gabriella asked, is there an amount that less than that of borer is okay and more than that is not okay? And no, there is not.
But you're just saying that rocks and like bigger objects.
If I'm separating the good from the bad, right? That's when we'll get into borer. There'll be a whole chapter, a whole chapter on that in and of itself, right? But that is the idea over here. Good night, Alan. Okay, 39, separating Trumot and Masrot. What's that talking about? What is that? What are Trumot and Masrot? Or Trumos and Masros? Okay, so Truma and Maser, produce that was grown in Israel, has a certain Kedusha, a certain holiness to it. And therefore we need to separate. Part of it goes to the Kohanim, part of it goes to the Leviim, right? All of that is only with produce of the land of Israel, which has that inherent Kedusha holiness. When we buy our stuff here, that is not an issue. So we will leave this aside. Yes.
So like Wholesome Choice has a lot of international products, and like say they have.
Okay, so Gabrielle pointed out, if you're getting produce from Israel, then you'll want it to have, if it's packaged, you'll want it to have certification, and normally it will say Truma and Maser was taken off. If in Costco all of a sudden they have Jaffa oranges coming from Israel, best, I love Israel, I'm an ardent Zionist, but best not to buy it because of the Truma and Masrot challenges. Okay, 40, opening cans and food packages. Okay, this will come to later on. This is an issue of making a container, making a kli. And therefore, when I open a can, if I open up a can of tuna on Shabbos, I've got a bit of a problem here. What's the problem? I have now cut through the top of this, and I've created now a container. I've cut through the metal top of this can, and now I've created a container. And that's a problem. I can't make a container. Why is that different than opening up a vacuum-packed bottle jar of pickles on Shabbos? Why is opening the can different than opening?
Reseal the pickle jar?
I'm sorry?
Because it can be resealed if it's a jar.
Yes, but even before I get to that,
Okay.
what have I done by the pickle jar?
You haven't changed.
Maybe you broke
it all,
something. You broke
right?
something.
Well, so if there's a little bit of a plastic, we'll soon see that's not going to be a problem. By the pickle jar, what did I have? I had an existing jar, and I had an existing cap. When I open up, have I made the jar? Have I made the cap? Certainly not. And even as Susie mentioned, if there's a little plastic wrap to make sure it's tamper-proof, so tearing that is not going to be an issue because that does not become a kli. That does not become a vessel of any sort. The problem is when I'm opening my can of tuna, there I've cut through, this was all made into one unit. I've cut through the top and now I've got myself a usable little container, a usable 4.5 ounce container. So a way to get around that problem is what I do if I'm opening up a can on Shabbos. And that is, first I will start to open the bottom or stab the bottom, right? I will make a hole in the bottom of the can.
Okay, so it's not useful.
And that way, when I do take off the top, it's not a usable kli because it has a hole in the bottom. Okay?
We learned that from
I didn't even know you
our
could even do that.
friends in Boston.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I asked my friend when she was here in Orange County, I was like, what? She's like, don't ask me. I just know that it works.
Okay. So now you can tell her why it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gabrielle said her friend in Boston was doing that, and she asked why. She said, I don't know, but it works. Now you understand why it works, right? Because you're just puncturing a hole. That's okay to do. It's a destruction, and that way when I take off the cover, I don't have myself a kli. Okay. Now let's say you've got now wine bottles with a cork. What would you say? Problem or no problem?
Are you having to stab the cork to pull it out?
Yeah, you're going to use a corkscrew to pull it out.
Problem.
What's the problem?
I would say no problem.
Why is it no problem, though, Daryl?
Because we're not creating another vessel.
Yeah, I'm not making a new vessel. It was a bottle before, and it had something stuck in the middle there that was preventing me from getting to my wine. Now I've removed that which is preventing me, and now I'm good to go. Right? It was a cork and a bottle, and now when I take it out, it is a cork and a bottle, like my bottle, my jar of pickles. It was a bottle with a cover. Now it's a bottle with a cover. Right? You know, if I want to get through the door and there's a cart of sidurim in the way, what do? I move the cart and I go through the door. So that's what the cork is. The cork is in the way. Get it out of there and enjoy your wine. Okay? Now, boxes of cereal. That's interesting. Boxes of cereal, if you're going to pull off that nice perforated cover on top, now all of a sudden, what do you have? Now I've made a very nice, usable box. So that box should be opened before Shabbos. If it isn't, then tear it apart. Right? Tear it apart. But another issue we'll see later on is we don't want, one of the 39 malachot is not to write or to destroy written words. Right? So therefore, you need to be careful not to tear the letters. That gets a little bit more difficult. Okay? Cut toilet paper has to be prepared in advance, as toilet paper may not be torn on Shabbat. Right? There, once again, I'm tearing, but I'm tearing at a specific measured amount. 3 squares, 4 squares. I'm not going to get personal. Everyone does as they like to do, right? But whatever it is, right? And tearing not on the perforated lines of the toilet paper is not going to make a difference. I'm still tearing off the toilet paper. So either tear toilet paper before Shabbos or have a box of tissues in there. That's in Israel, they'll sell Shabbos toilet paper, which are packs of already cut pieces, right? Hasn't yet come to Irvine, okay, but boxes of tissues certainly have, and you can go for that, right? Who knows? It might be a nice business idea. Okay, electricity on Shabbos. Okay, 41. Many of you leave some lights on from before Shabbos or after Shabbos. Some use a Shabbos clock, turn lights on off at preset times. The Shabbos clock must be set before Shabbos. Okay, we're familiar with all that. We mentioned last week, we went into this a little bit already. Electric bulb in a refrigerator must be, right, unscrewed before Shabbos. Now I'm dating myself when I talk about unscrewing a bulb because now everything is LED. It's not so easy to unscrew. So I mentioned last time. So very often on the door, there is a switch. That switch is closed, the door is closed, the door opens, the switch comes out, and that turns on the light. And then you close the door, the switch closes, that turns off the light. So very simple there. Put a piece of tape over that switch, and that way the switch thinks the door is always closed, and that way the light always stays off. With most new refrigerators, there is no such switch on the door, but instead what we've got is a magnet system in the door that when the door closes, and there I mentioned you could buy a magnet and you have to play with it a little bit before Shabbos, but you'll find the spot where when you put the magnet on top, it thinks it's being magnetized by the closed door, and that way the light stays off. Okay, there are different opinions on when an electric refrigerator can be opened on Shabbos. Some say open, and putting aside the light issue. Putting aside the light issue, there's another possible issue of the compressor issue. Like we discussed last week, that when you open up the oven on Shabbos, if one were to, we're not allowed to. If one were to, the moment you open it up, the fire shoots up because, like we said last week, the temperature in your house is 70 degrees. The temperature that the thermostat trying to maintain in the oven is 350 degrees or 400 degrees. So in order to maintain that temperature, the door open, it's got to be firing away. Whereas the refrigerator is 40 degrees, 38 degrees. The house is 70 degrees. When you open the refrigerator, it doesn't automatically have to cause the compressor to go on, but it could cause the compressor to go on. So there are different opinions concerning when an electric refrigerator can be opened on Shabbos. Some say any time. Some say only when the motor is running, lest opening the refrigerator cause the motor to start running. Okay, the normative halacha is you can open up a refrigerator. Again, we've taken care of the light going on and off issue. In terms of the compressor issue, normative halacha is you can open up a refrigerator whenever you want on Shabbos. You don't need to make sure the motor is running. Okay. Oh, thank you. Sorry. That's our Shabbos clock. And my glasses are shining. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay. Muktzah objects. Okay. And this will, again, will be a whole section in and of itself later on, but let's just touch upon it as he does over here. Page 42. What is muktzah?
Mundane objects.
Okay. So muktzah is not, mundane objects have the status of muktzah. But what is the meaning of muktzah? So muktzah means set aside. And it's mundane objects, objects which have no Shabbos usage, car keys, computers, video games, all of those things which have no Shabbos usage. So those are muktzah, those are set aside, and we're not allowed to move muktzah items. Therefore, before Shabbos, muktzah items should be put aside. If it was not, under which circumstances can one move different levels of muktzah items? Again, that is a whole section in and of itself, but we're now just touching upon it. Objects which fall into the category of muktzah objects, objects which cannot be moved on Shabbos should be put away before Shabbos. This applies to money, writing utensils, other articles, all listed in section 2. Objects should be left in places which are used, should not be left in places which are used on Shabbos, not in pockets, chairs, tables, kitchen drawers that are going to be opened and closed to prevent the possibility of moving them. Okay? If a man uses the same talis about Shabbos and weekdays, he should remove his tefillin from the talis bag to prevent moving them on Shabbos, right? Since men do not wear tefillin on Shabbos, they have the status of muktzah, so you want them to be put aside. 43, it's a mitzvah to check the pockets of the clothes so that one will wear on Shabbos. This ensures they do not contain anything muktzah, or that one will not accidentally carry any item into a public domain on Shabbos. So you want to check your pockets of, like my Shabbos suits, right? So then I don't really wear them besides on Shabbos. So I'm not really so worried. right? Though it has happened that I've worn it to a wedding, and then I haven't had books in there, but I had an invitation or something in there. So it's a good practice. The clothing you're going to be wearing on Shabbos, just to double check the pockets, make sure there's no muksa. And if the Eruv is down, then you have to make sure there's nothing at all in there. Otherwise, you'd be carrying it when you're going out. Okay, baby care, medical treatment on Shabbos, also big sections in of themselves. There's a baby in the house, everything needed for his or her care should be prepared before Shabbos, right? Mashed food, diapers, cotton balls. Okay, we'll get to all that. If one knows when the medical treatment will be necessary on Shabbos, one should ask a rabbi how to comply with the doctor's instructions in a way that's permitted on Shabbos. Okay. As 45, as Shabbos draws near, one should gently urge the family to complete the Shabbos preparations and finish doing work before Shabbos. Right? We discussed this last week. Right? Notice he says, gently urge the family. Lo tavaru eish. Fire should not be burning. You don't want to get angry. You don't want to turn Shabbos and Shabbos preparations into a tense, unpleasant time. You know, children remember most their associations, right? If there were sweet associations with something, then it will remain sweet in their mind. If there's sweet associations to Shabbos, then it will remain dear to them. One of the reasons that I've taken on the responsibility of giving out sweet lollipops to children is I want them to associate their rabbis as they go through life with sweetness.
Right.
Yeah, with something positive. Okay. Yes. Ladell, I'll give you a lollipop also, okay?
Perfect. Watermelon.
Ladell, your audio is a little bit wavy.
Can you hear me now?
I can
No?
try. It's a bit hard.
Oh man, not sure why. Okay. What is Maser?
Yes,
Use
what
the
is
chat.
Maser? I think.
I couldn't understand. You know,
Use the chat.
maybe use the chat to ask you a question, Ladell. What is Maaser? Okay, Maaser literally means Me'eser, 1 of 10. And that's part of the tithing process that we do with produce and fruits from the land of Israel. Okay, so right, have you taken Maaser? That is in Israel, right? But here, right, and that must be done before Shabbos because otherwise you're like fixing the food. It was inedible because of the tithes that were mixed up, and by you taking it off, you're like making a new vessel, so to speak. Okay, but that does not apply to us out here. Correct. It does not apply here, outside anywhere outside of Israel. It doesn't apply to produce that is from outside of Israel. But if you're getting produce from Israel at Costco or somewhere, then it would be an issue, and one needs to be careful with that. Okay, the Shabbos candles, right? 49. Why do we light the candles? To evoke an atmosphere of tranquility in the home and make Shabbos more pleasurable. It's one of the ways that we honor Shabbos and demonstrate its importance. Okay, the candles should be lit in the room where the Shabbat meal will be served. Okay, and other rooms of the house which will be used must have sufficient light too. Most of us have, right? We're not lighting candles in different rooms. We're not with kids running around, right? But you make sure there's enough light in the rooms. There are these wonderful Shabbos lamps. Have you guys seen the Shabbos lamps? Okay, there's the older model and the newer model. The older model was like a cylinder and a piece that turns around. You have a non-heat producing bulb inside there, and right, so it has, this is all closed and it's open here. So when you swing it around, oh, now the light comes out. You want it to be dark, you swing it back like that, and then it's completely dark. The newer ones that they have now, which are the new ones they have now, is it has just a little. It's a bright light, little plastic cover that you could slide over it and completely obscure the light or lift it up. Those are great things to have. Is everybody familiar with those? Should I bring one in next week? Speaking of next week, I'm not here next week. I'm in Florida at a rabbinic conference. We're not going to have class next week, and I'll try to remember the next time we do get together, the week after that, I'll bring in both of the Shabbos lamps, and you can see how they work. They're nice things. Yeah, and basically, when I was growing up, we would turn on the light in the closet and either close the closet door or open the closet door if we needed a light or not, right? That wasn't great for reading, though, right? So this is basically a scaled down version of the closet door. It's like there's a little door, a little piece on the light itself that opens and closes, and it's a wonderful thing. Yes,
I was gonna say, are they controversial or just
not the least bit controversial.
Okay.
Not the least bit controversial because you're not doing anything. I'm closing a closet door, right? You know, if there's a hall light on and it's disturbing, you want to go to sleep. Is there any issue with closing the door to the bedroom so the light doesn't go in? Certainly not, right? And all you're doing is you're putting something in front of the light. The whole chap, the whole idea of it is normally you put something in front of a light, it's going to get very hot and it can be a fire hazard. So this was made in a way that it's using bulbs that don't produce much heat, and there is a way for it to ventilate out so it does not become, right? It's UL, I think it's UL certified. Is that what we have by electrical items? I think it's UL certified. Okay, I'll bring that next time. Next time we're starting, which should be in 2 weeks. Okay, page 50, the woman of the house lights the candles, right? The mitzvah is principally the woman's. Every member of the household fulfills obligation by her candle lighting. Okay, it is commendable for the husband to place the candles in the candles and prepare them for lighting. That way he has a share in that. And I mentioned that's something that I do. That's one of my chores, right? Well, that I do also. But I try to set it up Saturday night already. So right away, we're getting ready for the next Shabbos. And I mentioned, yes, and I flip over one of the candles as the reminder to turn off the Shabbos, the lights in the refrigerator and freezer before Shabbos. Yes, good. You guys paying attention. Okay. If there's no woman in the house, the man lights the Shabbos candles. It's not a woman's mitzvah. It is a Shabbos mitzvah that is normally done by the woman. If a man is living by himself, then the man needs to light his Shabbos candles. From the moment the woman lights the candle, she must observe the sanctity of Shabbos and refrain from doing work. There is, though, an exception to that. And that is, let's say a woman is going to lighting candles at home and then wants to drive to shul and will walk home afterwards. A woman can make a condition, a t'nai, that I'm not accepting Shabbos with the lighting of these candles, and that way she could light the candles and then do malacha after, drive to shul, whatever it might be. But normally, the woman is accepting Shabbos not just with the lighting of the candles, but with the bracha that she makes, which brings us to the next part. Yes?
Isn't there a difference between the order of when a man lights it
Yes.
and a woman lights it?
Yes, we'll come to that in a moment. That is correct. Okay, let's see page 51. Yes.
So there's been a few times.
I'm sorry, for everyone over here. So Josiah asks, is there a difference in the order of the blessing, the lighting, whether it's a man or a woman lighting? And that is correct. And we'll see that on page 51. Remind me over here, if you don't hear the question, that I should repeat the question, so our esteemed group online will be fully appraised. Yes, Jackie.
So there's been a few times where I wanted to walk to shul with Josh on Friday night. If I were to do that, I wouldn't light the candles before I come because it's not time. Would I do it afterwards, like when we walk home? Or
No,
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 right?
because when you walk home, it's already Shabbos.
Okay, so how I envision it going is Josh comes by himself. I wait. I light the candles. The girls and I walk. That's why I've done it a few times.
Okay. So Jackie's asking about her lighting candles and then coming to shul. You're not talking about driving to shul. You're talking about walking to shul.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right?
so you can light candles earlier.
Okay.
In other words, let's say on the calendar, it'll say this past week, the Beth Jacob calendar said Mincha 5:20, candle lighting 5:22. You could certainly light candles earlier,
Okay.
right? Up to about 45 minutes or 50 minutes earlier than that. There, right? Usually we have, we're running short on time as opposed to, hey, let me add on, right? But you could certainly light candles earlier. Once we change the clock, we're going to switch to our summer schedule of a set 6:15 mincha. And candle lighting might not be till 7 something, right? But you could certainly light and come to shul. Just when you light, then you've accepted Shabbos.
Accepted Shabbos and that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
So there's absolutely no problem whatsoever in you lighting and then walking to shul with Josh and the kids.
Okay.
Absolutely, no problem
Like
lighting
always,
earlier.
like waited around at home.
Oh no. Okay, good. I'm glad you asked that.
Okay.
No problem lighting earlier. One can't light more than an hour and 15 minutes before Shabbos, let's say. Okay, that's right. That would already be too early. But an hour and 15 minutes before sunset. But within that hour, and that's why actually once we change the clock, you'll see the Beth Jacob calendar at a certain point will have candle lighting and earliest candle lighting.
Okay.
Because there's going to come a time where the earliest candle lighting will be 6:35 and we're davening at 6:15.
Okay.
So there you won't have the option of lighting at home and then coming. But when that comes out, then on the calendar I have listed both ECL, the earliest candle lighting, and the standard candle lighting. Okay.
Thank you.
Page 51, after lighting the Shabbos candles, one recites the blessing, Baruch Hashem, Tzivanu, Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbat. Okay? Why, after lighting the Shabbos candles, why is it that the woman makes the bracha after? Normally we make a bracha before we do a mitzvah. Why are the women doing it here after they lit the candles?
Because they're accepting.
Good. A
Shabbos.
woman
Yeah.
de facto accepts Shabbos with her bracha.
Yeah.
And therefore, we've got this conundrum over here. That, right, she just accepted Shabbos. How can she light the candles?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, while reciting the blessing, a woman covers her face with her hands so as to not derive light until after she finishes the blessing. How does that help? So she makes the blessing afterwards. So what does covering the face do? As it says, she'll only get benefit afterwards. So what? What's that accomplishing that you're getting benefit afterwards? Ask your friend in Boston. You'll teach her another thing, right? What is being gained? Because as we said before on page 49, the purpose of the lighting is to evoke an atmosphere of tranquility, make Shabbos more pleasurable. We're supposed to get hana'ah, pleasure from these lights. So what are you doing? You light the candles, cover your eyes, you make the bracha, and now after you make the bracha, what do? You get the benefit, you get the pleasure, you get the sense of tranquility, you get the honor of Shabbos from the candles. And that way we are somewhat doing the bracha before the mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
Because, so it's not before the lighting, but it's before the benefiting from those candles. Okay. A man who lights the Shabbos candles, this is what Josiah wrote up before, has not thereby accepted parts of the sanctity of Shabbos. And therefore, which is what I do, some rabbinic authorities maintain he should first recite the blessing and only then light the candles. If Natalie is away leading one of her trips to Israel, so I'm home for Shabbos, and if my daughter Devorah is away, so I'm lighting the candles myself. Now, I can't possibly accept Shabbos. I haven't even davened mincha yet, right? I'm lighting before I go daven mincha. So I'm not accepting Shabbos with the lighting, with my bracha, or with my lighting. So I'll make my bracha, I'll light my candles, and then I will go. So by a man, since the bracha is not his de facto acceptance of Shabbos, therefore a man could do the usual order, which is first make the bracha, then do the mitzvah. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
How many candles lit? Many women light the 2 candles, which correspond to the words Zachor and Shamor. These 2 words begin the 2 verses in the Torah regarding Shabbat. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, right? Shamor et Yom HaShabbat. Zachor, remember. Shamor, safeguard, observe. Therefore, a woman lights a minimum of 2 candles. Most have the custom to light corresponding to the number of members in their immediate family. Okay? You have 3 children, so you would light 5.
Okay.
Okay?
Why have I been told 7 by some people? What is the significance of 7?
Okay, so the significance of 7 is 2 plus the family, but you don't need 2 plus the
I
family.
think I've asked you this before.
Yeah.
I've been told, it's funny, some people tell me, oh no, you only need 2. Okay, then I light 2. Then someone else told me, no, why 2? You need 7. And I'm like, there's
Okay.
5 of us.
My guess is the way they got 7 is 5 plus 2, but
Okay.
you don't need to light 2 plus the family. The 2
Okay.
covers the family.
So I've
Right? So
always done 5.
you'll add for each child.
Okay. So I've done
Please
5.
God, you'll add for each child.
I've done 5, and then I have 1. Jaylene lights 1, and then Jenny lights 1. So that's how I've done 7.
Okay,
Is
they
that
can
wrong?
light, not
Like
wrong
that?
at all.
Okay.
Not wrong at all. It's more of a Chabad custom that single girls light, right? Usually single
Okay.
girls don't light, but there's nothing wrong in lighting, and if they enjoy it and that makes them feel part of the party, so then keep it up.
Okay, but like if I'm raising them a certain way, like how I'm learning, right? What is the correct way though? Should they just watch me light 5?
Yeah,
Okay, then
yeah, that's what they would do.
that's it then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
and yeah, and the idea is that each child brings added light to the family,
Sure do.
added light to the world. Yeah. We light a whole, not we, now we light a whole bunch, right? We have 7 children, so we're lighting 9 altogether, right? Not 11, but 9,
Okay.
right? And then we had a miscarriage, so Natalie, you don't need to, but Natalie decided she wanted to light.
That's why they told me 7.
Okay, you don't have to. You don't have
I
to.
get it.
Okay, there were 2 miscarried, 2
3.
misses.
I've had 3.
Oh, okay.
But
You
I
don't.
didn't tell anyone about
You
that.
don't need to do that. You don't
Okay.
need to do that. That's something that she decided to do. And I had 2 students who asked if she would light for them, so she does lights for them. So we light a whole. We have quite a few going on over there.
They have a fire department.
Yeah, right?
No speed.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. How the candles are lit. Okay, make sure the wick of the candle, right, was well lit. Okay, it'll burn brightly. Okay, that's pretty simple. Okay, don't open a window or door if the wind is strong enough to blow out the candles. That's pretty self-evident. Okay, now lighting the candles on the table is going to cause some muktzah issues. That's why we don't light the candles on the table. We have a little piece of furniture, a little
end table or something.
a little end table, shelf, whatever it is, right? In a, make sure it's not too close to the curtains, but find a safe place close, right, in there, in the room where you're eating, but not on the table itself.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the coffee table inappropriate? Because like right now we don't have any. I mean, we have a table and a coffee table and then the kitchen.
That's not inappropriate at all.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. 54, right? In the merit of lighting Shabbos candles, parents are blessed with children who are Torah scholars. Okay. This is very nice. Guys, 54. Many women pray after lighting the Shabbos candles that their sons become Torah scholars, their children follow in the ways of Torah, and they be given divine assist in all their endeavors. Everybody familiar with that special prayer? Everybody have that? I can make a copy. I can make a copy in 1 second over here.
And say it every Shabbos.
Oh my gosh.
Karen says it too.
She does?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
We didn't make this contract. Like we're ready.
me use that.
Every day.
I can't believe Karen is on board with that. That's like so funny.
Oh yeah, like it used to
We
be
have this over here in the
not a joke
shul,
anymore.
when women light in the shul, and it has a very beautiful prayer, both in Hebrew and English. In English, may be your will, Lord, my God, and the God of my Father, to be gracious to me, to my spouse, children, parents, all my family. Grant to us and all Israel good and long life. Remember us for good and blessing. Consider us for salvation, compassion. Bless us with great blessings. Make our household complete, crowning our home with the feeling of your divine presence, dwelling among us. Make me worthy to raise learned children and grandchildren who are wise and understanding, who love and fear God, people of truth, holy and attached to God, who will dazzle the world with Torah and goodness and service of God. Please hear our praise and merit of our matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and ensure that the glow of our lives will never be dimmed. Show us the glow of your face, and we will be saved. Amen. Okay? Interesting. There are 3 mitzvot that are somewhat designated for the women. One of them is lighting Shabbos candles. The other one is separating the challah. And the third one is mikvah. And this all relates to the Medrash teaching of the tent of Sarah, where there was a cloud hovering above, and that was because of the purity, the family purity. There was the candles that burned all week, that's the Shabbos candles, and there was a bracha be'isa, there was a blessing in the food, and that is the challah. So that these are the 3 women mitzvot, there are special prayers that the women say by each of these 3 mitzvot. In addition to the bracha that's made on the mitzvah, but there's a special supplication that a woman says when she's entering the mikvah, right? That'll be not for the conversion mikvah, but for the family purity mikvah afterwards, right? There's a certain supplication that she says when removing challah from the baking that she's doing. There's a special supplication that is said, and when lighting the Shabbos candles, there is this special supplication that is said. Are you familiar with this? No. Okay.
I thought you were referencing, and please tell me if you're not just able to just say this, but there's you say like Baruch Hu Baruch Shemal, like I've heard that as a blessing.
No. So that is when making a blessing, and I say, you hear the person say Baruch Atah, saying God's name, then you respond Baruch Hu uVaruch Shemo. Blessed is He and blessed is His name. That's a comment that you'll make on a blessing, and then Amen is what you say at the end of the blessing.
I said it from memory, but it was the wrong one. Is it Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vaed? Like you wouldn't say that.
No.
Okay, I heard it was probably Chabad.
Okay.
I heard something like there's some kind of meditation the 3 times that you do for that, but I don't remember.
Okay. 55. If you're eating in someone else's house, light your candles at home, and if they'll be out already by the time you get home, then get a little benefit from them before you leave. In other words, you don't want to light the candles and then run out to eat somewhere else. By the time you get home, the candles are out. So basically, you've gotten no benefit from those candles. So we use the little glass and the wax that goes inside there. And there are 3, 4, 5, and 6 hour ones. So if you're going to be going out to eat, put in some of the longer lasting ones, so it'll still be burning when you get home. And if not, then when you light, spend a little time at home with the candles, and that way you're getting some of the benefit of the candles. Okay. A guest can either chip in a little bit towards the candles, give a nickel on your, and that way they have a part, or the host can grant the guest a certain share, and that way they are all part of it. Okay, 58. Shabbos officially begins at sunset. Okay, this is important to know. When I list candle lighting time and the Beth Jacob calendar, that is 18 minutes before sunset. Okay? And the reason we do that, because it is customary, right? One is required to add to the holy from the ordinary. You need to bring in Shabbos a little bit early to refrain from doing works the night before sunset. This is called Tosefet Shabbos, adding Shabbos. And must be kept even the candles are not yet lit. Okay. So the candle lighting times listed in various timetables includes Tosefet Shabbos. Okay. So therefore, this past week, Shabbos candle lighting was at 5:22. Let's say, oh no, it's 5:25 and you haven't yet lit. So what do we say? So in such a case, we say, that's fine, light. Why? Because how much time do you have? Another 18 minutes. So you have until 5:40. 5:39, you want to play it safe to light. So ideally, light at the time that it says on the calendar. Light 18 minutes beforehand. But if you missed it, things are going on, right? Then you've got 18 minutes to light. Once it's 5:40, you haven't lit, do not light. Because that is desecrating Shabbos, not honoring Shabbos. Okay? Okay, so that's important. In Jerusalem, the custom is candle lighting is 40 minutes before Shkia. That's when the sirens will sound, telling people, right? But there again, you got 40 minutes, so, if you're running late. If one didn't light candles in time and sunset is imminent, one may no longer light the candles, since this is a form of work which may not be done on Shabbos. Okay. The prescribed time to light Shabbos candles, as mentioned above, Shabbos candles should be lit at a certain determined time before sunset. Weekly timetables for candle lighting in various cities appear in Jewish calendars and elsewhere. The candle lighting times are calculated on the basis of certain interval before sunset. Okay, the interval can be between 18 and 40 minutes, depending on local custom. I only know of 40 in Jerusalem. Everywhere else that I know, it's 18. But again, it's important to know that it's 18 minutes before sunset. And therefore, if you're running a little bit late, you can still light as long as you are well before sunset. And if you want to get a jump and go early, you can, as long as it's not more than an hour and a quarter before sunset. So you've got that range, and the calendar time is picking that 18-minute time. Okay, I need to run to someone's house, so we're going to stop over here, everybody. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Good.
Another
Good
wonderful
seeing
class.
everybody. Rose, good seeing you. Susie, Leticia, Leah, and
Enjoy
and
Florida,
Elizabeth.
Rabbi.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
next week we won't be studying, and the week after we will rejoin. Susie, I'd hoped to come, had a chance to visit with Nisim this week. It's a crazy week. There was a death this morning I had to deal with, so I'm running now to the house. So apologize to him. I'll be away next week also, but please send him my very best, Susie. Okay? Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.